The leak of a draft U.S. Supreme Court opinion has shocked the legal community. And you factor in the subject matter, abortion, and the issue attracts even more attention. Beyond the headlines, there's a critical issue. How could a leaked draft opinion affect the operations of the nation's highest court moving forward? Joining us now with some insight on that topic is Greg Wallace. He is professor of law at Campbell University and a constitutional law expert. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Mitch.
First thing I want to ask, what was your initial reaction when you learned that this draft opinion in the high-profile abortion case had been leaked?
I mean, you can use all the words shocked, dismayed, astonished, angered. I mean, I ran through the gamut of those emotions because this is just not supposed to happen.
What is the potential impact of something like this that we have seen? If this isn't the first time, it certainly is one of very few times that there's ever been any sort of hint about an opinion before its release.
I don't know of any other occasion. There was, I think, one reported occasion where somebody in the government printing office had leaked the contents of an opinion right before the opinion was to be released. It was already printed up and ready to be handed out to reporters. But this is an early draft of an opinion, and I think the most direct, there are a number of consequences. I think the most direct consequence is the chilling effect that it has on the internal workings of the Supreme Court. The justices, after an oral argument in a case, after they've read the briefs, gone through the oral argument, asked the questions of counsel, they meet together and take a preliminary vote on who should win the case, who should prevail. And then opinions are written, they're circulated. There is an ongoing conversation among the justices. Some justices may change their votes. Some justices may change their written drafts if they're not signing on with the majority. They may publish a dissenting opinion and address certain things there. Even if they are signing on with the majority opinion, they may ask the author of that opinion to make changes. So there's an ongoing discussion and debate among the justices about really what to say about this case. And if you have something, if you have an early draft that is leaked to the media and to the public, then that is going to have a very chilling effect on that. The justices need that confidentiality. They need that privacy, if you will, to be able to have to give really a full and fair hearing to any particular case.
You mentioned the fact that these drafts can change, and I expect that this process of having the back and forth will have a much different tenor if there's some sort of outside political pressure involved once some of the contents become public.
Well, I think we have to ask the question here, what was the motivation for leaking this draft? Now, again, let me clarify here. This was an early draft. We don't know if the final opinion will read the way that this opinion does. It's possible that one or more justices may have changed their votes, all sorts of different things. So we don't really know for sure about a lot of things, in this, especially who's the leaker or what the motivation was. But when I try to think about that, I think the motivation here obviously was political. I think it was to change the outcome of the case, either by putting pressure on certain justices to change their votes, maybe trying to gin up some public outcry against the decision in hopes that a justice or two would change their votes and vote a different outcome here. I think it's also designed to gin up the issue in Congress to see whether Congress might pass a nationwide codification of Roe versus Wade, if you will, that would protect a woman's right to abortion statutorily, in the event that Roe is overruled. So the motivation here has to be political, and that's what to me is so distressing about this, that some court personnel, maybe it was a law clerk, God forbid that it would be a justice, would consider the politics of abortion as more important than this sort of sacred privacy, confidentiality of the court that has been long respected. It tells you really how far we've fallen in the politicization of the law, and this idea of the end justifies the means. And I'm very concerned about that.
What sort of impact do you think that a breach like this can have on the trust and collegiality among the justices, who sometimes are fiercely battling each other on the issues, but have always been able to trust that their deliberations remain private until they want to make them public?
Exactly. I mean, you look no farther than the very famous friendship between Justice Antonin Scalia and Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Throughout their careers on the court, they were at odds on a number of issues, and yet they would attend the opera together. There's a famous picture of them riding on the back of an elephant together in India. And they were just the best of friends. I think this kind of politicization, hyper politicization, I think, endangers all of that, because then you're going to, this whole thing is divisive. I mean, how can one justice trust another? And especially if it comes out that this leak was committed by a law clerk, or even by one of the sitting justices themselves. I certainly hope not.
Seems to me that one of the downsides of this, it has many, but one of them is the idea that now that this has happened once, what's to stop it from happening again? What do you think can or should be done to help prevent another breach in the future?
Well, if we don't learn from this, and if there's not a severe correction, and by severe correction I mean that once they find out who the leaker is, and I think they will find out, if that leaker is a law clerk, that person should be disbarred, never work in law again. If it, God forbid, as I said, if it's one of the justices, that justice should be summarily impeached and removed from office. The court can work to regain its integrity and its confidentiality only if there is severe punishment for the leakers. Otherwise, if there's not, if people are going to look, askance at this and sort of turn into heroes the activist clerk or justice who ever leaked this, then I think the court is hopelessly broken. And the only thing maybe it would be simply to get rid of law clerks and have the justices do all of their own research and writing of opinions by themselves. At least that would narrow it down in cases like this to it being a justice and not one of their law clerks. But what I see already in the media and among the politicians is a pivot from the leak to the merits of the abortion issue. And I think we're going way too fast with that. I think we cannot underestimate the damage that has been done to the court's processes here by this leak, and there needs to be consequences that are imposed for it for the court to have any hope of regaining any sort of integrity or legitimacy here.
That leads to my last point. As a longtime observer of the U.S. Supreme Court, just how bad a day is this in the grand scheme of things? Is this something that's one of the worst days in the U.S. Supreme Court's history?
Yes, I think it is. And I mean, the Supreme Court has had a number of bad days in issuing some very bad opinions, along the line. Dred Scott, Plessy versus Ferguson, we could all name, our top 10 worst opinions of the Supreme Court all time. But this really goes to some of the fundamental operations of the court, and frankly, how they can keep from producing more bad opinions in the future. I will say that I think Chief Justice Roberts shares a little bit of the responsibility for this, because the take on him ever since the Obamacare case is that he's been very sensitive to the way the political winds are blowing. If you remember, in that case, he voted with the conservative justices to say that Congress did not have the power under the Commerce Clause or under the Necessary and Proper Clause to impose this health insurance mandate. But it was, then he sided with the liberal justices to uphold the law under the taxing power, which was not even really an argument. In fact, President Obama has a famous interview with George Stephanopoulos prior to the passage of Obamacare, where he adamantly denies that it's a tax. But Chief Justice Roberts kind of was trying to play the political gamesmanship here, and I think he's done that in a couple of other opinions. And this time, I think maybe it's turned back to bite him on it. I'm sure he's not having a very good day today.
Well, and he has said in an official statement that he has directed the marshal of the court to launch an investigation into the source of the leak. So we'll see what happens there. Greg Wallace is professor of law at Campbell University and a constitutional law expert, a frequent watcher of the goings on at the U.S. Supreme Court. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you.